Darkness After Dark, The Darkening 2. That's
The
fantastic.
Electric Boogaloo.
Oh my God.
Ah,
JR,
he did it
you did it
again.
again. I'm gonna mute you every time you do that. Let's see. Is he? No,
His
he's still.
pop took him out.
I believe it. That dog is messing him up big time. Messing him up big time.
He can't hang. He can't hang.
No, especially like once he. So he. Did you hear the story about the dog? Did you hear the story about the dog? Like how it messed him up. You still there? Looks like I am the only one broadcasting.
Is anyone here?
Oh yeah, Nick, can you hear me?
Anybody? Can you hear me? Wait,
Yeah, I can hear you.
you can hear me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't hear you. Why did that
Ooh.
drop out? Oh, because you know what? I went over to Twitch and I started playing, just watching the stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave and I'm going to come back in.
Do it, do it. And there was one. Welcome everybody. We're sci-fi writers playing old school D&D, and this lady right here is like picking my teeth. That's some weirdness. We're gonna shrink her down like that, and then shrink this cat. It's gonna be epic. There we go. So yeah, we had some stuff today. Here we go.
Okay.
And we have you. Yeah, we had some stuff today on Sci-Fi Writers playing old school D&D. There were lots of rooms.
Boy, they.
Lots of rooms with jelly and pudding and poop.
Yeah, we got to talk about all that. But first, Nicole and I, so we go get a Thai massage.
Like you do.
And yeah, like you do on Friday. And it's 8 o'clock. And so we go to In-N-Out Burger. And like, so because
Awesome.
I don't eat lunch now, I just have breakfast in the morning and then I bone broth for lunch. So play D&D, worked out first, play D&D, go get a Thai massage. Like I had a coffee to like cut the appetite,
Right on.
like at around 3 or 4, and then so it's 8 o'clock now. Like I have not eaten since like 8 o'clock in the morning, so I'm starving. But I have this policy: I split everything with Nicole unless she goes to like DEFCON 4 and says, "You may have your own plate." And I'm like, ah. So, and I knew we were both hungry, but like I have this policy. I only always split with her because I'm a big Irish guy, so I don't want to be a big fat Irish guy.
Gotcha.
So so I said, do you want to share a burger? Which is like a prompt, like hey, let's it's like when you and your wife go to a hotel and there's 2 beds in the room, and you're like, oh, what is this serendipitous event? Yeah. Because admit it, like like a separate bed is kind of fun. You're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can stretch out. This is great. She's not going to get up and bother me, any of that kind of stuff. But you have to, you even go through that little playlet where you go, oh, I'll miss you tonight. But really, you're like,
This is like camping.
yeah, this is like going on TDY, leaving all the assholes that in your unit to go, do sniper stuff or jump out of airplanes or do combo or combat lifesaver or whatever. Like you're on your own now. You can actually enjoy your military experience because no one from your unit's dragging you down. That's marriage when you get 2 beds in one hotel room, right?
That's
So
awesome.
I go. Do you want a burger? You want your own burger because we both haven't eaten for 12 hours. And so she goes, well, if you get your own burger, I'll just get like a lettuce wrap burger. And I'm like, okay. But how she made it sound was like, that's not really what I want to do. I really want to share with you. And so I interpreted that. I'm like, okay, no burger for me. So I'm like, okay, we'll just get one burger and we share it. And we just get home and like we woof it in like 3 seconds. And I look at her and I go, boy, we should have got a second burger. And she's like, well, I strongly hinted to you.
I
strongly hinted. Do you realize the oxymoronic nature of that statement? Right, Nicole? Strong. And I go, you're still hungry now? She's like, yeah, I'm still hungry now. And I'm like, why didn't you say anything? So
she's probably doing dry fire drills behind you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just
Um,
saying this could all be solved with a trip to Taco Bell as soon as you log off.
exactly. But I don't want my butt to explode.
Yeah.
And speaking of butt, I'm listening to all these like if you ever like as a science fiction writer, like I'm not a Q person or anything like that. But you can have infinite levels of fun listening to the Q people and all their podcasts and everything like that, and like where they are at in this whole like fiasco that's ongoing right now. And I heard this one military guy. He said, he goes, I think it's Monkey Works. If you ever listen to them, they're kind of interesting because they like do flight following and watch all the C-130s, and then they're like, and this is what's going to happen. You got to watch Abilene, Texas, and all this
Oh
kind of stuff.
God.
So from writing, it's like kind of fun. Like you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting. You learn things. And this one guy goes, he's like, when Trump decided to concede, which he didn't concede, but when Trump like gave his speech, he goes, I won't lie to you, I was conditioned Bravo butthurt, and I was like, that is my new phrase,
Condition.
conditioned Bravo butthurt.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So that was me after In-N-Out Burger. After like the 3 seconds of orgiastic glory of just like the both of us just like ripping this, like how James today wanted to just like rip us to shreds with that dragon. It was like Nicole and I were two dragons with that In-N-Out Burger.
Oh,
But
that's awesome.
it was such short-lived joy. It was like 3 seconds, like, you still hungry? I'm like, I'm hungry too. But to go to In-N-Out Burger, it's another like you have to drive back and it's like a 30-minute wait to go through the line.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
So those are the trials and tribulations of me.
Ouch. But at least you had the Thai massage, though.
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was there's the thing about the Thai masseuse people is they all have like a different game, a different they all learn like a different Thai massage martial art. So so some are pressers and they get your circulation going, and then some are like deep tissue and like they get your muscles kind of all moving and everything like that. So last week I had this one named Kim, and she's like the mistress of pain. So she's like maybe 4'9", like maybe like not even 100 pounds.
Right on.
And so what she'll do is she'll stand on all the points in your body where you will scream in pain, and then giggle while she does it.
Well,
Very
that's nice.
softly in the dark as they play their like mystical music, and she can really, actually, really, really hurt you. But all of it's good, and it gets everything working. But like, it's like a good hour and a half, 2 hours of like solid pain. That's not relaxing. It's not enjoyable, but it feels good in that way that like getting slapped around feels good. Maybe I've revealed too much about me. Um, but today I had the one Mary who is just she's very relaxing, and so you can just kind of bliss out, and you can think about the game, and you can think about how James is just screwing us the entire time.
I told God, this is when before I got hurt last year, and then before all the pandemic stuff. I was getting a coffee, and barista behind the counter is one of those like pretty interesting dudes. He's computer savvy, but yet he looks like he works out. He's got the giant mohawk afro going on,
Hmm.
but looks like he's got a brain in his head.
Yeah.
And he's like, so what are you guys doing today? And I'm like, oh, we're gonna do this, that, and then I'm gonna I'm really into people choking me, so I'm gonna have some like I'm gonna have like a big dude's like one of my favorite partners is like 220, 6'2", and he really likes to get his hands around my neck, and I just can't get enough. And the ladies behind me in line are looking at me with this horrified look on my face, and he's just like, he goes, "Is it like jujitsu or something?" I said, "Well, yeah, that's exactly what it is." He goes, "Dude, that's awesome," and those women just look horrified,
Yeah.
like,
You know that as
why?
he asked that question, he was going, "Please be jujitsu. Please be
Yeah.
jujitsu. Please be jujitsu."
Yes.
No, it's not.
No, it's
It's
not.
not. It's not jujitsu at
No,
all.
it's not. Especially not when they put the plastic bag over my head and I keep saying yes. Oh my God. Yeah, Captain Kilgosha
uh,
just hit the chat and he was like, "That sounds kinky."
And this is
finally,
why we can't have a family-friendly rating.
Yes, it's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
It's true.
Finally, we have someone to watch us. Now there's a reason for our existence.
But it's like yeah, that's what it felt like today. Like like somebody was choking me every time I wanted to move forward, and I really wanted to put like I really wanted to do a reversal and then go right into either, like omoplata or jujigatami or something like that. But no, I got to watch the feed and the stream.
Yeah, it's I mean, it would be interesting also for the people who are watching just to kind of tell us where you're at. There's definitely, I mean, you can read my face during it. You can figure out that, like, I told James like when I start doing that stuff, you have to understand the show is getting really slow, and so I love everything that he does creatively, and it's just so interesting. But we cannot just burn like an hour and a half of like, you know,
We're gonna make
I think
doorstops.
yeah, being doorstops and proof rooms and like, and I think like, like, and it's something I try to talk to him. Like, I think people want a little more straight combat with monsters, like that are actual monsters in the Fiend Folio, the Dungeon Master's Guide, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, Monster Manual 2. They want the old school monsters. But I think James is like, yeah, but I want to do that, but then I want to give them something that makes them undefeatable to you, unless you figure out the secret tick. And I'm like, yeah, the problem is though that like a lot of people want to learn how to run those monsters. And what you're teaching them is how to run a souped up version of that monster. And I kind of thought that I had made that clear to him, but I don't think I did. I think I failed in my operations order.
Yeah, that's why you got Fragos.
Yeah, yeah. But I've told him in the past, like when you see me like look at the sky or I start spinning around in my chair, like, and then he got it. I just like it was fun to fight a dragon. That was pretty cool. But like what was that, the last 20 minutes?
Yeah,
But like I think people like combat and they like fun, not like super hard, like here's a room. Like it's also like the bypassing thing, like that. I don't think people like, like, hey, here's a room description, and we're like, oh, it seems so ungettable that we can either sit here for 10 minutes trying to figure it out and bore everybody to death, or we can go, great room description, let's go try another room description. So
yeah.
that would be, yeah, those are the point. And so I'm saying that during this podcast to let people know, like, hey, give us your feedback, because I like to be super transparent and super honest and tell us, hey, am I wrong? Do you guys just like this kind of stuff? Or, yeah, would you like more combat? Would you like more pacing, that kind of stuff? I don't know. JR, what are your thoughts, man?
I know that when I try to give you combat, we just got poison lightning rain, and Walt's like, screw you and your module. Or one shot, or
Yeah, but
whatever the hell
yeah,
you
but
call it.
yeah, but we had fun. I mean, that's what I mean, I think that there's a line too with James is like, however you get powerful, I can guarantee you that like the next week you come back, all your powers are useless because the new monster he's throwing at you, like there's no reason to upgrade. It's just like now you're just gonna get slapped around this way. But I think people like D&D because you're like you get a new power, you get a new weapon, you get a new spell, whatever. And then the whole week while you're waiting to play again, you're like, this is how I'm gonna do that and everything like that. And then you go in to use it, and James is like, nah, that doesn't work. And you're like, okay. So I think if you didn't mind us raining lightning all over your precious NPCs and monsters, that was pretty fun for us.
Oh, and I'm just messing. But I will say that, James spent the last how long running one shots at tournaments, and it's a different style. I've say we've seen a lot of growth from him just since we started,
Yeah,
as far as what he's doing. So
yeah.
I mean, he's certainly
No,
responding, but I get, if you're used to one thing, changing on a dime isn't easy.
yeah, and I think like I mean one of the problems is I can't keep going to him each week and saying the audience wants more of this, wants more of that, because like I think we've started two storylines and then he's like, backed off of it. Now we're back in the dungeon. And then like I can almost guarantee, well, next week we're gonna do Andrew's mission. And then like the week after that, James will be like, and now, like like I think we're going too many directions at once. But it's a refine and repeat thing. You're trying to figure it out as you go.
And now gelatinous cubes.
Yeah, yeah.
But this
How
one is
about
red.
Gillette? Yeah, yeah. Dude, like, yeah. I mean, it's just I don't know. I don't know. I get a little frustrated, and I get a little frustrated with my character because I feel like whatever my character does well is the thing that's not going to work. Like, hey, I can turn people to stone. You can't turn anybody to stone. Okie doke. Well, I mean, and there was that one thing today where it was like, hand me a scroll, like, and when you dispel magic scrolls, because as a thief, I can read scrolls now at this level. I've earned that. He's like, make a wisdom check. And I'm like, I fail it. He's like, you don't get to read the scroll. And I'm like, that doesn't seem like the right mechanic. But I could be wrong, right?
Well, you got, I believe at ninth level, thieves can read and write, read magic.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, you should have been able to read the scroll.
Right. And then he's like, but he'll say like, well, that's not how it's going to be because I'm the game master. I'm like, okay, didn't we just have a conversation that people want to see the rules? I don't know. Come on, man, you're slaying me. But it's fun because the adventures are, he's such a delightful person, and the adventures are so creative, and I really do want to, explore this dungeon and get all the way down to the bottom. And it was fun today. Like he kind of threw out like, oh, there's a boss in this dungeon. That was kind of interesting. If you say his name, you go insane. But then I was like, yeah, but everybody made their saving throws. Shouldn't they kind of know the name now? No, you'd have to make another saving throw. I'm like it's just like, I mean, is it wrong that it feels a little head desk sometimes?
That's going to be the tough thing too. Because like at certain points, like Captain Kilgosha in the chat, right? He's throwing some interesting points out. He's like, we just want the monsters. We want to see you guys beat them up and then die. Not so much the
Yeah,
puzzles, unless there's a timer. And then he's like, a story, a quest, a reason to go into the dungeon. Viewers don't like inconsistency. We want the same thing, you know.
yeah.
That's the thing too. Uh, I got a lot of good feedback from the off adventures. So like the one I ran, the one JR ran, lots of great email and feedback, and people reaching out through like FaceSpace and Messenger and stuff. And the one thing they liked is that it was moving. It was moving. And I think that's where we're encountering the problem is that it starts to move and then it just stops.
Yeah.
And then
Well, because he'll think up these puzzles that there's no easy solution. And it's not, I think it's unfair of us to ask for an easy solution, but we are like saying, well, like, this is a show, so we can't like test solutions for 6 months.
yeah,
You
you
know
know,
what I
and
mean?
and that's the thing too. Like the show limit is 2.5 to 3 hours.
Right.
And a lot of that has to do with the fact that bandwidth. Everything's being recorded in pretty high definition. I mean, at least 780p. So you're talking when you go to upload them to like different streaming services like YouTube or what have you, right? You're looking at like like at least 30 to 40 minutes per upload
Ooh,
just to have it go in and then render. You know,
right.
so keeping it short also allows it to be a lot more digestible too. One of the other
Right.
podcasts that I work on, we do this thing called lunchtime beat 'em ups, right? Where we do parts of an
Wait,
event.
wait, what? You have another pot?
You work on another pod,
What? What?
moonlighting, bitch.
Jeez.
But like, yeah, lunchtime beat 'em ups, and it's 45 minutes to an
Yeah.
hour tops, and it's just pieces of the adventure so that they're more easily digestible.
Yeah.
But yeah, the even in the chat they're saying puzzles can be fun, so can tricky scenarios, but the Captain Kilgosha was saying that puzzles don't have to run for a 2.5 hour show, and they need to complete something in that time. So you
No,
know,
I mean like we were down to 45 minutes left, and he was giving us another like, and here's another room you can't solve.
yeah.
I mean, like, okay, I'm gonna throw a typhoon in there. Okay, and then he's like, and it's very like, okay, now a dragon attacks you. I'm trying to solve the room. You're like, okay, we'll fight the dragon. Like it's a little like I don't know what to do. but I feel like this is kind of why we're flailing at this viewer level, kind of like right now. Like I noticed there were a few more viewers today, but we're not like growing exponentially in the time of COVID when no one has anything else to do. You're
Right?
like, we we should have like a million viewers, and that would be fun, but we don't. And so it's just like I'd like I'd like James to keep doing it. I'd like him to be a part of it. I just I've expressed like, hey, these are some things that I think we should do, and I felt like 90% of that was just thrown. Like I had like a conversation with him, and Walt was there, and we had a meeting. We're like, okay, this is how we think the show should go and things like that. And I just felt like 90% of it was like, okay, now here's a room where there's a sword that if you do like, and JR's in there like, and interestingly to JR's credit today, he had like great ideas.
Yeah.
But the first idea, was like, I'm gonna throw a javelin at this floating sword. And okay, so there's three chests, they're evil, blah blah blah. Like, no clear thing how to do. And he's like, and this sword's definitely gonna hurt you. Okay, seems pretty menacing. So the first thing that we do is we throw a javelin. Jared throws a javelin, and it turns to dust. So you're like, is that what this thing does? Like, if it even hits you, do you turn to dust?
Right.
You're like, well, that seems like you shouldn't mess with that. So it just becomes like, hey, that was a great room for everybody to look at for 20 minutes. Now we could publish, and I kind of try to like, well, let me talk with the sword, oh, now like you hear this name, and you go unconscious. Do you want to hear it again? I'm like, well, if I make a saving throw, do I get to know it? No, you'd have to make another saving throw. I'm like, you're not reading that like people don't want to get lost on this stuff. I mean, but I don't know if he wants to do the puzzles more than the combat because maybe the combat's too complex. I don't know.
Yeah. Weird. It's yeah.
It's weird.
It's definitely
Yeah.
it's a tough thing to tackle too, because how do you the audience, as obviously just said a few minutes ago, they want to see us beating up monsters or monsters, eating us. Captain Kogosha and some of the other guys are like, hey, did you guys TPK yet? I'm gonna go make a
Yeah.
sandwich. I'll be back. Can you TPK when I get back? I mean, we have having some real fun interaction with the chats during when things are going on. People were throwing those sound effects around like crazy today. It was so great. Although I got to tell you, I had to change my underwear like 3 times because you guys scare the crap out of me when it happens. Because like it'll just happen, and I'm just like, oh god, I totally did not expect that. Because like some of the sound effects are like they creep up on you, like especially like if it's a sound effect regarding your wife acting out the sound
Oh.
effect, right? And she'll it's like it starts really soft and then she'll get louder. I'm like, whoa, gee, oh my god, I totally didn't expect that. So like, it's like because like I think it's her rendition of "and that is how you win D&D." Right, and it starts
Oh.
really
Yeah.
quiet, and I'm like, "Oh, somebody must be playing," and then it gets really loud, and I'm like, "Oh crap!"
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the part I think about the show that's working is like there's an environment where people are really having fun. Um, I think if the content, if we could kind of iron out this thing where the content was more like people wanted to pay attention, then they probably wouldn't just, rain sound effects down.
Right.
Or maybe they would, but maybe they're, I don't know, maybe that's symptomatic of like a bit of like when we have those sort of like quote unquote boring moments, like, oh, let's hit the, like, I don't know. I know, what? I'm saying those things because I feel that they need to be voiced, and they're probably a little harsh, but like, I don't know. I can't waste people's time. I can't waste your time. What's the growth on your lunchtime, mash 'em ups?
Um, in the beginning, it was very slow. Like the live shows, nobody was really watching them because they weren't. We didn't have a fixed schedule. It was when everybody could show up.
Right.
Now, when they do the lunchtime, the lunchtime beat 'em ups and stuff like that, it's usually um, anywhere between 20 to 25 live between YouTube and Facebook, and then several hundred downloads within the month. so people going on YouTube and rewatching it later. So pretty good interaction, pretty good engagement. Um, but there's no slowdowns where it's like people are
Right.
arguing for 30 minutes over, like a Bill Clinton thing. Well, the definition of is it's a lot more faster paced. Now granted, the premise is we were testing a game for a company called Bloat Games, and it was like Transformers, right?
Right.
So we were testing out those mechanics, and those mechanics are fast because Transformers aren't going to sit there and be like, I make sure I look up, down, and inside out, and test the trap for random tickle torture. There's none of that. There's possibly a trap here. Blow it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Yeah, but I've played D&D with you. We've all played D&D with you. Played D&D with JR. Like I think when you keep those things in mind, it's easier to do that and advance that along. So it's something that I think we've got to address going. Like, how long have you been doing beat 'em ups? Like you've probably been doing it the same amount of time as the show or half the show, and like I just feel like we're in danger of losing the audience if we don't somehow overcome the arguing, the back and forth, and some of that is because James wants to invent things that are difficult, and my hats are off to that. But then that causes a lot of questions as we go through it, and then we have very intelligent people like Rothman who plays, or like Terry Shepard was in there today, and they're going to ask probing questions, and they get shut down a lot on it because the dungeon master can hide behind that. Well, you don't know and then they'll come back in and blah blah, and it does become a very lawyerly discussion. And like I bet there's a great podcast idea in that. I mean, there probably are people who like D&D to be sort of explored on that level,
Right
that
on.
existential. Let's philosophize the entire thing. That's probably a show, but I don't think that's our audience right now. I could be wrong. Let us know in the chat. And while you're there, mash the subscribe button. I don't
There
know.
you go.
Give us stuff. Give us a reason to be here.
Hell yeah.
Go tell 25 friends.
That would be fantastic.
Only 25?
Let's
then
say,
they could tell
though,
25.
Okay.
Let's say, like, for tonight's show, let's say we're gonna scrap this campaign. We're gonna let this campaign go. And we're not. We're just. But I thought tonight's show could be fun. Like, let's do like a world building exercise.
Ooh.
And like what kind of campaign would you like? There's still only 3 of us here, which is great. If you guys are game for it,
Hit it.
let's think up like a campaign that we would do to replace it, that would maybe address some of these issues.
Here's an idea I've been toying with. So
It's a
because
terrible
I'm
idea, JR. No one cares. No one cares.
because I'm doing some fantasy stuff after I finish this book I'm almost done with, I started looking more at some of the D&D manuals because that's sort of iconic, and you don't want to like just recreate Tolkien. Okay, well, Nick would recreate Tolkien, but the rest of us, you want to branch out a little bit. And so I was looking at some of the old modules. So some friends asked me to DM for them the modules as sort of a way for me to learn the stuff. And so I'm looking at some of the original, like the original modules, and started thinking like that could be some fun, like standalone episodes where we just go through some of those intro modules. They're designed to be, a couple sessions.
Yeah. No, Keep on the Borderlands. I think you were talking about that in the chat one day. I have that one. That is my favorite kind of like.
I love
module.
Keep on the Borderlands.
Yeah, Keep on the Border, and it's a great staging. Like it's like there's so much in Keep on the Borderlands that you can get into. Like, I mean, the dungeon itself is really fun and interesting, and you can go through, like, you can pretty much grow to 4th level through it.
Yeah.
But the keep itself is kind of cool too. Like if you really want to kind of get into like there's some good characters in there to kind of mess with and have fun. And if you ended I mean, you could build a whole campaign just around Keep on the Borderlands.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So
you're saying, JR, like about like basically maybe starting a campaign that's just original modules. Like,
yeah,
you would go from Keep, and then I think you could go into, I think there was a progression of how it went. Then it like went to like It went to Hill Giants, right? It went to Battle of the
Yeah,
Giants, the Hill
against the Hill
Giants
Giants.
modules. Yeah, and then it went to the Drow, right? And
Uh,
then by that time, you were about like ninth level.
yeah, I'd have to look it up for like the actual order of it. But yeah, there was a progression of it, and they went with like seasons or almost themes. So the
Mhm.
first couple of years
Couple of years.
they had the like the A modules, then the B, and so forth and so on, and each kind of series of modules covered a certain thing. But like yeah, I was thinking the other day because the other month when I put out as I was putting together the Falcon stuff for Eye of Horus, our new OSR
Mm.
release. You and I were talking,
Yes.
and it was like, we could do like a pirate city,
Yeah.
and I was thinking, and the second you said that, the only thing I could think in my head that would be just absolutely epic in a thing like that would be do an entire campaign where you're part of a thieves guild in the middle of a mob war.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like the Sopranos versus like the Yakuza, or something like that. That would just be epic. I would love that. And like, not everybody's a thief either. You have like a wizard working for the Thieves Guild, and
Right.
you have like the crazy, what do you call it? Like, imagine like almost like a Black Knight, where he doesn't show his face. He's always cloaked in shadow. He doesn't really speak, and he's actually like the priest of the god of thieves, or something like that, or like the priest of the god of shadows. And he has the
Yeah. He's like the enforcer.
yeah, but have that as a cleric and a wizard who knows how to sneak.
Yeah.
Because not because he's a particularly good thief, but just because if he takes any damage at all, he's going to die. So like, but like
Right.
have a
Yeah.
full on
Exactly.
mob war going on
And
in the
that's
city.
that was what we were well, so when we were thinking that Andrew was going to be DMing today, we started our little coup in progress where we were going to mess with him. And one of the things that came up with that discussion with Nick and I was that if our characters were gonna die, we wanted it to mean something. Like you wanted them to have a death that you felt like, the bards would tell stories about were this, real, right? So like if I'm going out, I want like a full cap charge with everybody in my retainer, like all 100 of them. Like we're just gonna like slam into something epic. Like so that's one of the things I think people are looking for is they want like if the characters are gonna die, like they don't just want the characters to die. Like they're throwing out like crazy ideas to do it. Like light him on fire and throw him at the giant to kill him on his, like they could go out swinging kind of thing. I think that matters too. Like the not just that you trip and oh you fell in a spike in the ground and you got like gangrene from a paper cut or something.
Yeah, you don't want to be like J.R.R. Martin.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind his money though.
but like yeah, those kind of campaigns were always the ones I really enjoyed playing in. Not the one where you were fiddling with a lock and a door for 30 minutes of like real time, and you just like look, can we table this discussion for 5 minutes? I want to go order the pizza. That kind of
We
deal.
lost Nick. He got sad.
Yeah, he got sad. He would.
And I'm sorry, Andrew. We apologize in advance, and I'm sure they disavow everything I just said about our plan to mess with you, and I'm sure they didn't mean it.
Captain Kilgosha gifted a tier 1 sub to Shadow the Illustrator. That's really cool.
That's nice of you.
And then Esoteric down in the chat was saying, I love the legendary James M. Ward's anecdotes. So, like, as you're learning, like, through all this experience, learning, because this is your first time, kind of your first big outing with D&D, what are some of the things that you're noticing that you're, like, picking up now that you're here?
Sorry.
Oh, you're all good.
So, are you asking Shadow or are you asking
No, I'm
me?
asking you, dude.
So, I do notice that sometimes it feels like it's just I roll this dice, I have this damage, and so I like, and I know that's some of the more original style. I like when we've done some of the sessions where there was a lot more descriptive to it, so it felt more cinematic. We got a lot of that with James when we did the Gamma World stuff. I mean, you could visualize what he was describing then, and it wasn't just, you stab, you did 10 points of damage, and you move on. I wonder if that's just because he's a lot more passionate about Gamma World, and maybe rightly so. It's a good system, and that's his baby. But I do like that a little bit more. I think when it feels cinematic and you can kind of picture it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some moments where he could be. I think he could definitely be more cinematic. Like a lot of the rooms are just very like it's a room, and you're like, well, okay, like maybe you could get into the description of the rock or the stonework or whatever. And if we press him, he'll come up with things. But he's growing. I think as a campaign DM and things like that. But I do think I think that's a great gift that Walt has that you immediately embodied. JR was that description of things, like getting people really into the mindset and the setting, because that makes like whatever like is going to be combat, that makes it's so much easier to visualize. As opposed to I think these are just three guys in green trousers. Like
So that was
are they? Are
Andrew.
they?
So when
Yeah.
we were prepping for it, and we went and did some play tests, and I will tell you, the Titan killed you like 6 times out of the 8 we practiced it.
Yeah.
Um, I did not count on like lightning poison from the sky for a half a freaking hour. But anyway, I'm not bitter. The one of the things he did was he's like, when you do your combat encounters, just write yourself, because he's helped me compensate for my head injury and my memory. He's like, just write a couple descriptions for each monster, like it would do this to you, so you don't just it runs into you. It's like, oh, it gores you and throws you into a tree or something like. So I actually had a script written out with all of those as little prompts, so I didn't
Yeah.
have to think in the moment, and that really helped. I would not have thought of that on my own. I'd have
Yeah.
frozen like a motherfucker. I mean,
Have you ever read Conan? Have you ever read any Conan novels?
Oh my
I
God, Tower
have.
of the Elephant is so good.
Yeah. Conan novels are very like, especially for fighting, like they're just very like, and then Conan like slammed into him with his thigh and then cut his wrist. You're like, it's very like the fight scenes in Conan are probably like the best. And they're written
So
in the 1930s, but they're
speaking
well,
of Conan,
yeah,
my oldest, because he's the one that got me back into interested in playing like on a tabletop as opposed to Skyrim,
right.
and so he watches our episodes when they're live on the TV downstairs, and he told me
Cool.
I should tell you that it's not Dungeons and Conan, it's Dungeons and Dragons, because you talk about it so much.
It should be Dungeons and Conan.
Hell yeah.
I ordered him. Well, he's not listening to this one, so we're good. But I ordered him a copy of Conan, and so he'll understand.
Oh my
Sweet.
God.
Like Conan the game or Conan like one of the
Wait, there's
books?
a game?
The,
There's a couple of games, but
yeah.
there's a really great sandbox game.
S-
Interesting. No,
s-
I ordered him some of the books.
yeah, don't dip
Yeah,
your. The current Conan game is by a company called Modifius Press, right? And you want to get your head right around D&D before you crack into this one,
yeah,
because the 2D20 system takes a minute. So,
Okay.
but
Well,
the I own the books. They're gorgeous. Oh my God, are they gorgeous?
yeah,
yeah. That's
I
the
was
cool
looking
thing
at the
about
books for him.
the Conan world, like itself, is like so fleshed out. But like you're talking about, like Conan like when you the books that you got, like JR, like Conan the Unconquered, Conan the Defiant, those
Yep.
ones.
Yeah.
Those are all great, and those are all really cool one-offs, but the world building in those are so cool. But not only R.E. Howard, but the people like L. Sprague de Camp, and I think a bunch of other guys. One of the big ones wrote them too. But a bunch of other guys came in and wrote Conan novels, and I think like the publishing directions that they must have gotten from the publishers, like you've really got to get into the fight scenes, and so like 9 times out of 10, you get really great fight descriptors out of Conan novels.
When we were talking not too long ago, Nick, we were talking about the Death Dealer series based on the
Yes, yeah,
Frazetta paintings. And man, I tried to hunt those books down like in their original form.
right,
I was like, oh, I bet Nick would really geek out if we could send him those. The lowest
yeah,
I could find,
yep,
the
yep.
paperback, was $300.
I know.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I didn't realize there were like, I think it was like four were made, because I started
Yep.
looking for them too, and they were expensive, but it was I mean, you can find like, I think there's reprints But like it was interesting. I didn't realize like, and he was kind of involved in it too. I mean, my guess is he's like, hey, here's a story. I don't know that he sat down at a typewriter and wrote them, but Frazetta, but he was kind of involved in the actual stories. I mean, he was kind of trying to put together an IP. It's interesting that the thing that I think is interesting is that IP is probably in Hollywood somewhere,
Oh yeah.
optioned and just wasting away.
Oh, it sucks. It was a fun. They were fun books. I mean, granted, I did. I must have read them. I think 30 years ago now.
If they're gonna
Yeah,
do a reprint or a remake of some of those, I would like to see the Lone Wolf series. I read those like crazy as a kid.
Lone Wolf series.
Yeah,
Lone Wolf McQuade
they're
with Chuck Norris, the
no, they
greatest
were
movie ever.
choose your own adventure novels, and you played a Kai Lord that was sort of like medieval meets Japanese when it comes to the culture, and like you were a traveling warrior monk going around fighting things, and of course, you know. You cheated because it says if you roll this number, go to this page, and if you go, so you're like, let me see which one is better. And you were supposed to get like they gave you a character sheet you were supposed to fill out and like track stuff, and it was a
The
lot of fun.
I thought you were going to talk about Lone Wolf and Cub, which is just phenomenal, phenomenal series.
But
I thought we were going to talk about Lone Wolf McQuade, which
Yeah,
is
yeah, that's exactly
the
what I meant too.
greatest Chuck Norris movie ever made.
But I went looking for the RPG for Christmas for my son, and it was like $200
yeah.
because it's a
See,
collectible now. I'm like, you jerks,
there's
put
this
it back
one
in print.
scene in Lone Wolf McQuade where they bury him in his Bronco, like the mob like
Right.
shoots him up, and then they bury him in his Bronco, and his Bronco is supercharged, and he's under the ground, and like they're all laughing on top of it and everything like that. And the first thing he does is he cracks a beer and he drinks it, and then he starts up the truck and guns it out of the grave, and then just starts killing everybody. And that's why that's the greatest movie ever.
Did you ever see Force of One too?
I've never seen Force of One. No.
Yeah, that one was good. I got to tell you, as weird as it was, the Octagon.
Yeah, I remember the Octagon. That
Oh,
would
that
show
was
like every few Saturdays a year on like the local cable station. You're like, this is like it would be like Kung Fu Theater. That was a thing back in the '70s, Kung Fu
Kung
Theater.
Fu
Like,
Theater.
yeah.
It was
So
awesome.
yeah, those were good. But Lone Wolf McQuade, that was great. I think he was using in that he was using a really cool shotgun in that. I remember too. But yeah.
So
So
speaking of
go ahead.
guns, we the episode
Yeah.
I couldn't make. The You guys got some firearms. So have we gotten a firm
And you
description?
gave those firearms to us, right?
No, that
Basically.
was James.
That was James, okay. Because I would have called you Gunmetheus.
But so have we gotten a firm description? Is it like Civil War era where you got the percussion
No,
caps, or is it a prison
we've
band?
gotten several descriptions.
Because I'm like I can't even like okay. So I did as a grad student. Like
The one he's gone with is their blunderbusses,
okay, because I
which
actually
is going to
interned
be
at a historic arms museum as an
you
intern.
would you would of all people.
I got to handle a blunderbuss. The funny thing is they had the vault where everything was stored had like a halon suppression system for the fire, so that way nothing got damaged. And I remember the park ranger I worked for. He's like, "Jr. If something happens and you don't make it out that door, I just want you to know it's nice knowing you, but the door's going to seal and you're going to die because you're replaceable and they aren't." I'm like, ouch. I spent the whole time I was in the vault like watching the door. I wonder
Old
if he was
guns, old
serious or
guns,
not.
old guns don't do it for me. But like modern era older guns, like I think I'd like to fire a stoner. That'd be like really
A
cool.
stoner. Oh my God, they are so
Yeah,
much fun.
yeah,
They are
that
so
would be
much
really
fun.
fun.
Do they smell like
Yeah.
patchouli?
No, don't make me hurt you. Stoner
One
machine
of
gun,
the
dude.
Yeah, one of the GE readers is an arms dealer in Vegas, and
Nice.
and so if you guys ever all want to meet there, we can shoot all the fun guns we want.
Oh,
If
don't you
there's
threaten me with
anything left
don't you
of Sin City.
threaten me with a good time.
He just picked up a Bren he was showing me, and I was like, oh, I want to shoot
Nice.
A
that.
brand new stoner.
A
No,
bread
a
gun.
Bren.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, no, but I don't know if he has a stoner. I just like lately, I like after writing Strange Company, I've kind of had like this desire to like shoot a stoner.
I'm
Fair
at
enough.
the I'm at the part in Strange Company. I'm like 2/3 of the way through the book now, and I'm just, oh my
Oh
god, I'm
wow,
loving it.
you
That's
Loving
your
it.
like it?
not GE book, right?
Yeah, it's my not GE book.
Your trilogy.
So good.
That's inappropriate GE because Jason's like, no, you do this darkness on your own. I'm like, sweet.
So good. I don't want to say, like, I can't say anything. I can't
No,
talk
say
about
it.
it.
No, it'll no say it.
But
I don't
like,
want to know.
I love the voodoo warrant officers that are just so
Yeah,
freaking cool, and nobody knows if Stink Eye, like who or what he really is, and I love
yeah.
um, the oh, I don't want to spoil it. There's so many good parts. The
So it's
scene.
basically like GE after the preacher goes to bed.
No. It's about mercenary companies in space. But the cool thing, like, there's a scene where two mercenary companies are standing off against each other, and it's like,
Oh
it
yeah,
was like, you know what it really reminded me of, and I love it when a writer will dig into something that makes you think of a real historical event. And I was thinking of the trenches of World War I,
yeah,
and they during Christmas, the Germans and a couple of the other forces stood down.
1916, the winner of.
Yeah, crossed a bunch of lines, and then they said, let's just celebrate. We'll go back to killing each other tomorrow. And it
yeah.
was, and it
Can you
there's,
imagine being the first guy over the berm for that?
oh my God, you
Fuck
must,
balls of steel.
right? But
Try and stop me.
in, in the book with Strange Company, there's a scene where it's like, and I'm not going to actually use people's names, but there's a scene where it's like, Dave, is that you? Yeah, Bob.
Yeah,
How you
yeah,
doing over there? We're good. How you
yeah,
do? And they're like talking back and forth with each other. These are people who've worked together as mercenaries before, but now they're on opposite sides.
yeah.
And it's like, oh, that scene, Nick. That scene was so good. I was like,
Oh,
yes.
thank you.
That's gotta.
I
That's
like the.
always a. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead,
I
Jason.
say mercenaries are
Sorry.
always a hard sell for me though, because like I don't know, they kind of always the idea of doing it just for the money and not like some grander purpose always kind of skeeves me out a little bit. There's another
Well,
series
yeah,
that's all about mercenaries, and it was like that was my one complaint. It's like, but why? Like, is it just for the money? That's
well,
it.
you have to like there's and I wanted to address that question, before because it can just be and it can get really like dark and like there's no like in GE the Legionnaires have esprit de corps and brotherhood and everything like that. Well, the premise of Strange Company is they have a saying, it's strangers to the universe, brothers to one another. I forget. But basically what they've realized is like they've all come from some kind of past that's kind of jacked up, and they know that like some of them are wanted, like in the French Foreign Legion, some of them are wanted for murder and stuff like that. And as long as they stay in the company, they have each other's back, and so they may fight with each other and not get along, but they're in it for each other. That's so at least there's that cohesion that doesn't turn them into total just sort of soulless killing machine monsters. And then that's like once I kind of like as I began to write the book, I said, okay, that's the theme to kind of explore throughout the entire book of like their past and why they're here and what that means and why as like when you're a mercenary and you have the opportunity to DD out when it looks bad, you don't because these guys are actually your brothers. And so you're going to stick it out or you don't. So that was kind of the glue part, but you're absolutely right. That can be the problem with writing mercenaries.
It's so good. Like that one scene, I had chills, and like, the way it's
Yeah.
described, the way the scene wraps up. Um,
Yeah.
you just
Where the
kind
one
of,
guy where they both play their cards on each other where he and the guys who the narrator or Sergeant Orion, he's like, and I ask him how many are down there. Maybe he'll think I'm being merciful, but he's not sure. Like maybe he's asking because he wants to get the advantage. Like even he doesn't know why he's asking. It's like and the other guy doesn't ask for mercy. Yeah, that was a cool. I like
yeah,
that
that
scene.
was that was a really good scene. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, the what do you call it? Like I said, I'm 2/3 of the way through now, and it's I'm really dying the way. And the part I'm at now is he's just about to. They're just about to start dealing with one of the monarchs.
Yeah, the Seeker. Yeah, that's that now is when it gets insane.
Yeah.
And it was like I think that series like I just wanted to like throw a lot of fun stuff in there. Like Hauser, the combat cyborg, and who's just basically lifted from a certain thing, and just like
Hannibal.
it's not magic. Yeah, yeah. Basically from Tom Berenger from Platoon, basically.
That's
And
exactly who
I
I thought
wanted
of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of how he's written it. He's just like great soldier. Face is messed up, but he's the personal villain of the guy who's narrating the story. And the Voodoo Platoon, I didn't want to do like Space Wizards, but I wanted to do Space Wizards.
The
And
Voodoo Platoon is cool as
I think
shit.
yeah, like they're just all kind of messed up freaks who can do science that's basically magic. Either really good like yeah like the whole psycho when they gas the terminal and psychotropic gas and then
Yep,
they
yep.
decide that's how they're going to attack. Nicole's like, this is really dark. I'm like, yeah, it's fun.
Sometimes you got to shoot, and then sometimes you got to gas. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
just because
right.
it's a bad idea doesn't mean it's not fun.
So when this book comes out, dear listener, I need you to go out and buy a copy so he can use that money for his
Oh,
therapy
please.
fund.
Yeah, I need therapy. But back to world building, I would easily run like a D&D Conan campaign. That would
That
be
would be
because like
epic.
the lore there is and there were Conan D&D modules that came out around. I think Conan the Destroyer 2, not the Conan movie itself.
Yeah.
Isn't that what the
But when they
barbarian class
did
was supposed to be?
uh I think like I'm trying to think like I think the barbarian class came out after that. Like basically
Yeah.
fighters were barbarians. Yeah.
And the
But
what do
the
you,
barbarian class is just so wacky because it's like, hey, you're gonna go down in the dungeon and find magic items. Here's a guy who likes to break them. Have fun, everybody.
awesome.
I will say when we talk about that, that's one of the cool parts when we have James going on about some of the history of like how things came to be and some of that. Those are fun little vignettes into the
Yeah.
evolution of the game.
No, I think it's a master class for anybody that ever wants to do an IP. And I think the interesting story of TSR is like what happens when you have massive success and you're completely unprepared for it.
Yeah.
And that's something that Jason and I always talk about, like create products anticipating success, like do the groundwork in advance. But I think the saddest thing about Dungeons and Dragons and TSR is like they really were geeky for it, and they like there's an alternate reality where they don't make the decisions they made, and D&D is I think a much better thing. But in this reality, like in my opinion, D&D goes really way downhill after AD&D. Just personal opinion, but don't mean to ruin everybody's day. But like, imagine if they had not, they did not become a cultural phenomenon, and they just those creators and everything, like they just kept playing D&D together and kept making rules and making living and breathing worlds instead of kind of what did happen. Where would the game be? I think the game would be a lot smarter
Yeah.
But
because
would
they were
people
really
have
smart.
found
Like,
it?
well, the finding of it is what ultimately ruined it.
And
That's the
that's the
problem.
Because I mean, when you think about it, right? You look at the evolution of the rules, right? What happened was with second edition, they pared back on a lot of what happened in Unearthed Arcana. Because in if you're just using the second edition rule book, um, the only ones who can specialize are fighters, and the only
Yes.
ones and double specialization is something that can't happen until much later. If you get it at all, and it's only melee weapons, um, they took out the bard, they took out like all these things they took out, right? And they were trying to pare things down and make it tighter. And then what they said was, because they got a whole bunch of backlash in Dragon Magazine, so they said, all right, we can put it back in. We have mechanics for that. So they created all these like splat books where they
Yeah.
said, all right, this is the ultimate fighter. And all you got to do is bolt on kits to the classes, and this is how you get these different things. Um, but that what they people felt they didn't go far enough. So that's when third edition hit, and they started putting in things like feats and advanced classes and prestige classes and like all these other things because people wanted more variety. And then the not Warhammer, oh god, World of Warcraft hit,
Yeah.
and they were just like, I bet you we could do this at the table. So like if you play the fourth edition
Yeah.
is just like playing World of Warcraft, exactly like a
Uh,
tabletop version.
uh,
And it's like you have this many spells per day. If you do a short rest, you recharge your health for this many points and blah blah blah. You know, and it turned D&D into superheroes.
yeah.
With
Because they moved from creating and inventing to chasing.
to chasing,
And that's always
yes,
the life of like a bad IP is when it gets into chase mode.
yep,
Then there's someone else out there that's doing the new thing, and you're just trying to stay relevant. And it's like I wonder what would have happened if like they would have had a quarter of the success that they had, but instead of like this, most people don't understand the success that TSR had. Basically 80, 81, 79 to 83. I mean,
yeah,
like everybody was playing D&D, and it just became such a huge thing, and then the controversy and all that kind of stuff. And it took the primary creator and flung him out to Hollywood, where he didn't do anybody any good. And then they suddenly had these corporate masters, and they were trying to like, and then once different people bought it, they're like, well, how do we get all the kids who have the old player's handbook to buy the new player's handbook? Oh, new rules, like, blah blah blah. And now you're just chasing. You're not there's no you're not creating anymore. And that's why Jason and I have said like G only has 3 seasons. Like if we get to the end of 3 seasons, like, oh, let's do another fourth season or whatever. Like, but what we never wanted to do was like, and here's a cash grab. Like,
yeah,
no, we're not doing that. We'll just walk away and do something else.
yeah. There's a lot of innovation that came out of some of those other editions, though. Like one of the things that you saw, in stuff like the original Tomb of Horrors and stuff like that. Like you hear James talk about the old days, and characters were carrying plants. They were carrying like animals in cages and like all this stuff, and it's like, you look at those same modules that were rewritten for later editions later on, and a lot of that stuff is no longer necessary anymore because they inserted storyline and they inserted a reason for things. Like if there was a goblin in a room, he had a reason to be there. It just wasn't a goblin in a room. Where the
Yeah.
original first edition stuff, or not really so much the first edition stuff, but like the old red box, the white box, all that stuff. Stuff was just in rooms, in a castle. It's like, why is it there?
Yeah,
Why?
that's kind of what we're going through right now. It's like, here's the beholder, and he's next to the orcs.
Well,
Yeah,
And
maybe
we're
we
like,
should
well, what's
clarify
the
that,
reason for that?
that we don't necessarily need it to be Gygaxian, because if he's saying that's what Gary did, then maybe that's the flaw is the what we asked for.
could be. Could very well be. You
Because I
know,
mean, Andrew has said when we've talked, him and I have talked, that this is the way Gary ran things.
yeah.
So
But if you look at like some of the stuff now, companies that are like Frog God Games, Necromancer Games, Troll Lord Games, basically have taken their own version of D&D and published it, and they're doing tremendous things. Like their modules and stuff like that are fantastic. Their Castles and Crusades, the guys from Troll Lord Games, they've said they're never going to publish another edition of the game. The only thing they're going to do is every few years come out with like a rule book with new art and new layout and blah blah blah. But like they're doing their eighth printing, their eighth update on their player's handbook right now, it's the same rules, same game, same thing they published 10, 15 years ago. It's just new layout, new whatever. So.
And
Oh,
they sponsored us once, so yay
yeah.
on them.
Hey, there's Mr. Rothman. What's going on,
We were
dude?
just talking about you, bro.
I just woke up. I fell asleep.
That happens to us when we get old. We
Yeah.
understand.
Exactly.
But like, yeah, like some of these companies are innovating, and I think you're getting a better class of adventure, you're getting much better layout, much better reasons for things happening, lots of justifications for stuff. So it feels less like a board game and more like a role playing game. Because you have those interactions and
Yeah, I mean,
NPC. Okay.
I mean, my personal thing is like I would just dungeon crawl. I
Mm-hmm.
like the mega dungeon,
Oh yeah.
but I like to have an ecology of the dungeon.
Oh yeah.
Like one of the greatest modules that you can ever play is Caverns of Thracia, and Andrew will listen to this because that's where he starts his campaign. Everybody starts off in Caverns of Thracia, which is a Judges Guild module, and it's one of the first mega dungeons ever written, and not ever written. It's one of the first mega dungeons written. But like there was a whole ecology to it. There was a reason why everybody was kind of at war with each other in the dungeon. There was a reason why the gnolls were over here, why the mad priest was down here, and stuff like that. Keep on the Borderlands is like that. Interestingly, when you go in and look at Keep, everything is kind of explained. Of like this is why these hobgoblins are here, and they will help these hobgoblins. And this is why the evil priest in town will flee over to here if he's caught and stuff like that. Um, I think you have to. I think that there is ultimately a story to Greyhawk, to Crimson Hawk. Um, I think that Gary probably definitely had that in mind. I think there's some interesting things. Like I said, one of the most interestingly cryptic things that James ever said to me, and it's kind of taunted me because when we were first talking, I was like, "Well, tell me about this," and he was telling me all about the dungeon and everything like that. And I said, "Well, how far did you guys go? Did you guys ever solve it?" And he's like, "Well, we did get to the bottom level." And I said, "Well, what's down there?" And he's like, did you? I said, "Did you beat whatever was down there?" Because I didn't want to know because I want to play.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh no, you could never beat that thing." So like that little statement, "You could never beat that thing," is so like weirdly taunting and Cthulhuid. Like,
Right.
what is it? What is it that Gary Gygax made that you can't beat? Because like we've been teased with the other things that are in the Crimson Hawk dungeon. There's some really interesting things. Like, have you ever read that post that James did about the fire giant level? Like, it's crazy. Like he said one day they opened this door to go in and he said like there was a fire giant king. There was something like 30 fire giants, 12 dragons, a bunch of hellhounds, some Afrits.
Dear
And he's like,
Lord.
it took us a year to beat. He said it took us a year to beat that room.
Now, what's interesting though is, I guess I'm wondering, and we'd need James to be able
If you
to
say
answer.
grenades, I'm gonna scream.
Yeah, no, I could, but I'm not. No, but I'm kind of curious whether or not, if Gary had laid out all of that dungeon, because if you think about it, you start that dungeon as a relatively low level group, and
Right.
but by the time you're actually down at the bottom, you're going to need to have a whole bunch of teen level plus. So that's a pretty wide expanse of difficulty. I'm curious whether or not he auto leveled it as things went on, or if he'd actually had it planned that way from the very beginning, where you know like for instance, if those giants were always there from the very beginning, or if he actually had it mapped such that, okay, they were not going to get to level 6 by the time, before there's at least a total level of 20 levels or 30 levels or whatever in the party. So yeah.
Well, just like remember when you're playing D&D, like he was using Crimson Hawk to test every idea that would be in D&D.
Right.
So I think like at times it's very random and weird and stuff like that. But like some stuff that James has told me that I cannot say publicly.
Oh,
But
we're not in public. Yeah, but it's cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
uh, but it is mapped. Like it is mapped all the way down, and
Right.
like, and that's been a source of contention for
Right.
like that's a huge source of legal contention and there's two different factions fighting over that and everything like that. People have tried to produce the dungeon and everything like that, but it is mapped, and it is very interesting. But I think like from a psychological standpoint, and like, see, also just remember, like, as a writer, I put the stories together. Like, and you're a writer. Everybody in this conversation is writers, not just me. So you know that like a lot of the times we see rando things, like we see. Okay, so like just talking politics, like there was a battle in politics this week, and it was really between Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell. And like Nicole and I were talking about that, and these are two completely different people. And everything that I could say is about it could be total bullshit. But here's what the writer sees. The writer sees Donald Trump as a person who has totally had privilege his entire life and has had the best upbringing and seems to have kind of maybe turned a corner and become like a person who's for the little guy. Like if I were going to make this into an opera, make this into the story, I would make him the prince who had everything and kind of could have been the worst person and then turned around to kind of be for the little guy. That's just my take. I'm not saying he's
Yeah.
that way. But then I could go over to Mitch McConnell, and here's Mitch McConnell who has polio. Most people don't know that he has
Yeah.
polio. His legs don't work, and he's a very Richard III character. And what I've tried to tell, like, and I know the Richard III monologue as a Shakespearean actor. There, you have to understand the character of Richard III. Like a lot of the times when we meet people who are injured or disabled, like what Hollywood has taught us to do is to think that they're kind of saintly people with a lot of wisdom that we don't possess and they can make us better people. The reality is a lot of the time when you meet people who are broken or injured or, sort of like ostracized, they're not actually nice people. They're pretty bitter. They're pretty out for revenge. They're angry at society, which is very Richard III, the Hunchback King.
Yeah.
So a writer just sees random separate things and they put together the story. And I think like in the big giant great cosmos of everything's actually interconnected, a lot of the times the writer's right. That there is a story there where there seems to be separate parts. And so what I find fascinating about Gary's Dungeon, because but you're wondering how it was all going to come back to that, is that Gary as a creator might have created it just thinking it was all random. But a Freudian psychologist would come in and tell you there's nothing random about this dungeon. There was an architecture here all along. So I'd like to find out what that is just from a storyteller's point of view.
It is interesting the way you phrased it, in as much as folks at the top, so to speak. You're using the McConnell Trump analogy. There are two types of people. One
Yeah.
being one being the one who's made it and wants to see everyone else succeed and be happy, and the other one who's made it and said, screw you guys, I want you to suffer as much as I have, and
Yeah.
I'm going to make you suffer.
Yeah.
The
Is that
justification
true?
of
I
every
don't know,
hazing
but
ritual. I suffered, so you shall suffer.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Lord, JR, now JR will hold forth on the Lords of Discipline.
It's a good book. I'm just saying. Pat Conroy was a good author.
So
I think it's you've lived your life by that book, haven't you?
Mike, we were saying earlier that if we had to scrap the current campaign and go with something brand new, what would you like to see?
I mean, yeah, I guess it really depends, because I'd be open. I mean, I even toy with the idea, kind of like Gary would have gone ahead and said, and it was doing the Crimson Hawk thing as a test vehicle for his other stuff. I mean, I'm even contemplating. I was contemplating even over the Christmas break, where I didn't do it, but it, test, like if we're all doing books, we all have storylines and whatever. This kind of thing seems like a perfect test vehicle for even book storylines. So it could be anything. To me, I think playing something akin to Dungeons and Dragons is a perfect test vehicle for almost any storyline.
Well, that's how
Yeah.
S.A. Corey wrote The Expanse. They wrote it through a tabletop role-playing game called Traveler.
Okay. Yeah.
I did not know they used Traveler, but that's interesting.
Yeah, and it was funny too because a lot they had said in previous interviews that the what eventually came out of those sessions was much different than what was actually going on at the table. Especially when you count that a lot of characters never made it into the books because they died in character creation, which is a thing that can happen in travel.
No,
Yeah.
no, because to me, I mean, because I'm in the throes of writing, editing, and whatever, a book that is at least adjacent to a D&D like theme. I look at this, I'm going, it'd be kind of cool for me to play act, just like when we're writing a story, we're essentially in our minds play acting a campaign, but in novel form. So I mean, to me, you should be able to take any of the books any of us have written and do the same activity, and it would be interesting to see how
And
it ended up.
only $10,000. Walt will turn your book into an RPG.
Yeah, there you go.
Peter Mont 2 in the chat was saying that not all D&D in 78, 79 were giant dungeons and dungeon crawls. If you played in Errol Otis's game world, it was often giant clouds, confusing illusions, or outer space with robots and magic users together and on the open seas. So yeah, I guess this is a reason why you shouldn't do that much coke in the 70s.
Yes, and I got to real quick. I got to meet Peter because I got to play in an Errol Otis game, and Peter is Errol Otis's oldest friend.
Oh, that's awesome.
They play together in Errol's game, and I got to play in a too brief slice of an Errol Otis game, and it was some of the most fun I ever had. Errol is probably one of the most inventive, creative people you'll ever game with. Just a really great guy. And I just emailed him this week. I'm like, hey, we want you to come back on the show. And he's like, oh, I'm finishing a painting, but I want to come back, so count me in. So I think he might be back next week.
That's really dope.
Oh, that'd be really cool. Yeah, because if you think about it, we all try really hard to make stories entertaining, and I think these D&D campaigns shouldn't necessarily be unrelated stitched scenes of a book. I mean, I think they should, move us along towards a conclusion. So I mean, I think because people watch for the death and screaming and yelling and whatnot, but they watch for the progression. Where is this going?
I actually think they watch Nick and Andrew argue.
No, I mean, I think they like, and that was part of the meeting we were having with Jim this week. I think they like, and Andrew was like, well, maybe I'm getting too overpowered and stuff like that. I'm like, I think they like watching Andrew play because he's very inventive and very knowledgeable, and he does some really crazy fun stuff. And that's just what happens when I think you have that level of mastery of the rules, because there's so many possibilities that are open to you. You kind of know what to do. What?
Captain Kilgosha in the chat. He's like, from an audience point of view, it's the game is the story of Chrome and Lance, a bromance gone wrong. You gotta just take all the XP for that one. You win today.
And that's how you win a D&D.
I think the Prometheus thing, if anybody enjoys anything, I think it's just the levels of outrageousness he gets up to in like sort of like taunting Jim with the things that Jim does. Like, I'm going to give you this because like that was his initial premise is I had this sword when I played with Gary and I hated it. And so I said in my heart, I will make you hate this sword. And so, and then like, becoming a storm giant and stuff like that. Whatever he does to my character, whatever upgrade I can get, I'm kind of forcing it right back into him and making him deal with it. And I think that's what makes Prometheus kind of an outrageous character. That's
right. Fun. He mentioned that you're not going to be a storm giant forever, so you're tracking your XP. So, because we were joking after we signed off about when your character becomes a god. Terry and I and Mike and that was what we were talking about at the end post show.
Right.
Oh, and Jim said I wouldn't be a storm giant forever.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the implication anyway. Accidents happen, so yeah.
I will be a storm giant. I will be more than a storm giant. See, whatever gauntlet Jim throws down, I'll come right back at it with. It's fun.
No, and that's the cool thing is because again, I mean, I don't know, what your guys' writing styles are, pantsers, plotters, whatever, but but a D&D campaign kind of forces you to playing the whole D&D campaign analogy to a story. It forces you to be a pantser to an extent, and go, okay, I wasn't expecting it to go this way, but let's see where we go. Yeah, so
Yeah, I mean that's what I call what I learned at the Groundlings in Los Angeles. That's the yes and storytelling method, which is like whatever happens, you just build on it. And
right.
I think there's some DMs who are like, no, you're ruining my plan. We're gonna stay on this thing, and you're gonna go here because I really I really have it all planned out. Like if you ever like one of the most fun you can ever have is find some Reddit thread where people talk about worst DMs ever. And like you'll just hear some awful horror stories. And I remember this one guy was talking about he like answered an ad for someone who was running a Star Wars game. And it's like I show up and the guy is running it and he's also playing Han Solo. And I'm Luke. And it proceeds to get completely like the first 45 minutes the guy just basically plays with himself. Like basically plays as Han Solo, DMing himself and doing everything right, and then proceeds to try to have a love affair with the guy who's playing Luke and Leia. And like it just turns like completely psychotic, and the guy's like, it was just the weirdest experience of my life. So, yeah,
Was that you,
DMs
Nick?
that kind of have these. That was me. That was in college after the army. I needed money. I was inexperienced. No, but I think the yes and method is like, which is how Jason and I write Galaxy's Edge. We just like I'll say something outrageous, and then I've forced Jason to build on it by going, yes, and now this happens. What you can't do is you can't say, no, that didn't happen, or you're crazy, or it was all a dream. Whatever the other person says, you then have to build on that. You have to like, if I say like Tyrus Rex is dead, and then Jason's like, yes, and now like the Legion goes on without him. Like, and that's like it's a really once you kind of really get in, and it takes like as a team, it didn't immediately happen for Jason and I, but we kept forcing ourselves to work under that parameter. And after a while, like now it's just seamless for us. And it really does, like once you kind of let go of your like special thing that you want to do, it does make what you're doing, both of you, better.
Yeah. No, no. I mean, because to me, between you and Jason, you seem like the crazy scientist, side of this house, and he seems like the one who's like, okay, let's see how we can make that sort of work, and pull you down, scrape you off the ceiling a little bit, and get and make that idea work. It's like, where can we go with that? It's like,
I'm the one who wants to play with the action figures and light them on fire.
Right.
And Jason's like, but wouldn't they be good just in their display cases right here? I'm like, nah, let's.
You were that kid in the
let's
Toy
make it,
Story
but
that was
you know
like
what?
torturing him.
Jason calls me the cousin that wants to play with your action figures, but you don't want him to.
What do you mean? I got to take it out of the package.
He's right. Yeah, like he's right though. Like there are things that I want to do sometimes that violate canon, and Jason will say, no, that's not a good thing to do, and this is why. And I'll have to be like, yeah, you're right. We shouldn't do that. That's a bad thing to do. He's like, so what we could do is play with this. It would be safe, and no one would get hurt. I'm like, well, I guess this time.
No, and that's where you get the back and forth. You come up with a crazy off the wall thing. Yeah, and it's the and but or it's
Kill
the
my favorite
negotiation.
character.
Yeah. I mean, I think like where I was strong in our relationship was some of that in the beginning of doing that, where it's really paying off, I think, for Jason now, is because he's the curator of the series, like, and he really like he really knows everything about the series. I have to refresh my mind sometimes about different things about it, and I'll get things wrong, and he'll correct me and stuff like that. But because he lives and breathes the series and knows it, like the things he's writing now are just pro level interactions.
Yeah.
Like, and it always was like, I'm not saying he's suddenly gotten good. No, it's always good. But because, like, just like with Andrew having such a mastery of the rules, what I'm noticing in Jason's work right now is because he has such a mastery of the series, like now it's getting like you couldn't be this good at the beginning because you don't have anything to work with. But now there's so much, like, once you like, and that's what we were talking about what would have happened if all these guys had not had their wild success in TSR and had just kept building. Like, I think D&D would just be like so much better. And it's the same thing in a brand. Like, if you continue to be truthful and faithful and you keep creating more and more content, there's so much to play with. And if you really are the master and you own it, you don't do anything false or phony. But what you do is you find these new, like, if you're reading Legacies, the new GE book, and I'm seeing everybody's minds really blown by a lot of the stuff in there, you're seeing what happens. That's the payoff of a lot of hard work to get to that point.
The
Instead of
ending
just
of
like, and
Legacies.
now you have,
I was going to say the
yeah,
ending of Legacies broke my brain. That was like
it's
fantastic
good.
fuel. I was like, when I got to that last page, so and so walks into the thing and is like, "Hey, this is," and I'm like, "Oh, you're kidding me!" It
Yeah,
broke my brain. It
but
was
you only
awesome.
get there through a lot of hard work, like, and that's where Jason's just really like absolutely owning it right now because if you patiently and truthfully build your IP, build your dungeon, build whatever, like, you can create things that, and I can only imagine, you know Andrew's 30-year campaign must be incredible.
Yeah.
Like, to have that much content to play with and have fun with. That's like, I would like to have this campaign or whatever we end up doing get to where, like Rothman was saying, like people want to see characters grow
Right.
and have fun, like, and I think that's something we're struggling with James. Like, yeah, we're growing and getting better, but like sometimes he's like, now you're a turnip. Now you worship
Mm.
this god. Now you're an ant. Now
Yeah.
it's like, our people, you got to let them, you got to let the character grow. You got to let the character have some. I think JR's character, like, how many wives have you had? Different things like
Just
that. Like,
three.
they like, there's so much like to explore there with that character, but I feel like we could do more of that.
No, and like with anything, you don't want long strings of success, success, success. You need to get bumped down a couple notches every once in a while so that you struggle for what you achieve. So I mean, to side a little bit on the sadistic side of James, yeah, I think he's trying to do that too, but it's a fine line. It's a fine line where you have to walk.
Yeah, are you talking like in a campaign?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
You
Well,
don't you
campaign
don't
or
want to,
story.
like, you don't want to have it ever get to, and that was when we got our 25th Acts of the Dwarvish Lords.
Yeah, that's
You
bad.
know, you but I think what we're on more is like, we're a little more on the sadistic side. Like, and now
Yeah.
you guys have all been beaten and thrown out naked, and that's how it. I mean, James is just the proverbial, like, I mean, dad from the 60s or 70s, like, just telling you like how miserable their life was and then telling you to go mow the grass and not bitch about it.
He's Red from that
It's
70s
the
show.
opposite of how kind of modern parent.
I like that guy.
Yeah, yeah, basically, like, we were treated miserably. Kurtzweil, what is his name?
Yeah,
Kurt.
Raymond.
That's the actor. But
Oh,
his
sorry.
greatest role is in Patriot, when he's in a rehab group in Patriot. Did you ever see the show Patriot?
No.
No.
It's an Amazon show that got canceled, and it's great because it's about a spy who's depressed and goes into hash bars in Amsterdam and folk sings all the stuff he's not supposed to talk about. He like, now I gotta go kill this dude tonight, and it's like it's a really morose show. It's not Raymond Kurzweil, but it's something like that. That actor who plays Red. So he's like this boss, and he had an addiction problem a long time ago, and he gets it again in the series. And so he's in this rehab meeting, and he's talking about something, but he has his kind of babbling, and the counselor goes, he's like, I'll just call him Ray. Ray, are you can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
hit it.
He's like, Ray, are you snorting cocaine right now? And he's like, well, yes, I am. I have some right here next to my finger. And I've been snorting cocaine through this whole meeting. And then he goes on this big long rant. And his last line through the entire thing is, see you later, losers. Anyways, that's funny to me.
So did you catch the little factoid of information? It looks like Terry might be leading the session after a little peer pressure from Nick.
What happened?
He would
run a game? Terry run a game?
Yeah, Terry's going to run a game.
That would be epic.
Wait, I
That'd
didn't
be
do
cool.
peer pressure. That was Jim.
I was going to give you some credit, but okay, Jim can take it.
You almost had me all worked up that Terry was leaving the game to like overthrow the country.
No, not
No,
leaving.
leading.
Yeah, he's gonna what do you call
DM.
it? DM a game.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant leaving.
No.
By the way, Esoteric wanted to know, is Jim the real Chaos Actual?
Have you seen him play? Yes, he is. He I'm sorry, Nick, but he's better at it than you. He's better at being chaotic. He's like, oh, let's just run ahead. We have no
Oh, are
plan.
you kidding? No, Jim is absolutely insane. Like he's just like, I attack now, and like I even he was in Andrew's game, and like he's creating chaos over there too. He's like, I take the ring after we killed the elves, and he's like, Andrew's like, and everybody in the party was like bereft because like they were sad, they didn't know these elves were kind of good, and they were struggling with the issues. And James just takes one of their rings, and he's like, I'm not giving it back, and no, he's totally chaotic.
Oh my god.
Can you imagine as a campaign that's been going for 30 years trying to remember all the lore and stuff? Oh my god, that just scares me.
I mean, it depends because like a lot of these guys keep like really copious notes. Like if you look at somebody who's interacted with us before, Lord Gasumba, Jay Scott, he's got a 40-year campaign. And it's been in Greyhawk the entire time. They have like their own version of Greyhawk that's amazing, and we had Anna Meyer on who did all the cartography for them.
Wow.
And it's just the stuff like you listen, like we're just shooting the breeze right now and talking D&D and various subjects, but like they have like a dedicated night on their podcast, right? So they have like game nights where they do like their Greyhawk adventures and stuff like that, but then they have like dedicated nights where they talk about like Greyhawk in general and their Greyhawk specifically, and it's immersive and crazy. But like they even talked about a show where there was like a tournament league that was going on. It was Living Greyhawk. So what it was is it was a series of campaign modules that you could play across the country. And when you created a character, you registered your character so that everybody could have access to it. But like for example, like say Mike wanted to go to California and play live with Nick, and the campaign started at say in January, and you didn't get there through until May. So January, February, March, April, you were playing the campaign in your home state with your home group. When you went over to play with Nick in May, right, you would play the next module in the series that you've all been playing. So you're not behind, you're not in front, you just get in there and they already know your character because they can have access to it, and you get in there and play. So imagine like when those cats got together, they would get together in these big conventions once a year and just have like a massive session with all these different like chapters around the country. Not just around the country. There was an Australian chapter, a New Zealand chapter, an Italian chapter, Great Britain, and they'd all come to Vegas to have these huge, or not Vegas, Wisconsin, to have these huge like tournaments where they would play these like convention modules. You know, I mean, imagine tracking all that knowledge over all that distance with different groups, not just one group. So there were a lot of people out there that did stuff like that and did it all with like pen, paper, notebook, and Xerox shit and mailed it to each other. It was crazy, and that was early '90s, early to mid '90s.
So I've got a question.
Those are the kind of people that know how to use a card catalog.
Yeah, you ain't lying.
So I've got a question. Yeah. So later this year, end of this year, I mean, I've not attended a single 20K session. You know, the 20K to 50, whatever thing. But
The cult, is that
yeah,
called?
yeah, exactly. But I'll actually be there this year. But at the they're holding
The
it at
question, will anybody else be there?
well, yeah, exactly. But it's at Bally's, and so I ended up. But yeah, so
Wait, what is the rando information? But it's at Bally's. Have to do
Well,
with anything?
I'm gonna bring it back. So
What is Bally?
I was wondering whether or not anybody is going to be in town, because it would be kind of cool, because I actually am going to have the penthouse suite. So I've got that booked. So it's a ridiculous amount of square footage. And I was like, if you guys, or a substantial portion of you guys are there, we could actually play face-to-face D&D.
Oh, that would be
if
dope.
you're going to be in Vegas at that time, or arranged to be.
Nick has described Vegas as the epicenter of hopelessness and despair.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. But
Well, it's like you never brought it back to Bally's, Rob. But let me bring it
well,
back.
no, that was the penthouse thing. Yeah, because I have
Okay.
I have the penthouse
will-
at Bally's. We can play it.
I will allow that then.
Yeah.
The epicenter of hopelessness and despair is at the south end of Vegas,
Where they
near
had held it?
Searchlight, where they used to hold that convention, and that was the saddest place in the universe.
Yeah, it sounded sketchy.
Yeah, but I have my arms dealer friend in Vegas who will let us shoot all kinds of fun guns, AK-74Us, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we could have a D&D and gun day. That'd be fun.
That'd be awesome.
I'd be down with that.
Yeah.
But that I think that would be it. I would like to, obviously Greyhawk has a living, breathing. I think like it would be interesting, and I was kind of hoping we would do that with Crimson Hawk, but we don't have to. Maybe we do a different campaign or whatever like that. But we all enjoy playing together. We're having fun together.
Yeah.
No one is planning on dying anytime soon, so we could do this for 20 years. It would be fun to start a living, breathing world, and get it going. It's kind of interesting.
Agreed.
Yeah, I like Andrew because he's so deep. And he has such knowledge, and like he would be, he's such.
He's our walking encyclopedia. Yeah, I mean that's the cool part. Yeah,
you could tell what a loss the session was without him today.
Yeah.
Like we could get anything done. We could just look. We could just get room descriptions. Oh, that looks terrible too. Okay, let's go look at another room. Oh, fuck, that one looks awful. Well, let's go over here. Oh no, a 6-inch fairy walked out. Fuck that. Let's try the other one.
Oh my
Well, in
God.
our defense, we did kill
The only
the
time
6-inch
anything
fairy.
happened was like when the dragon, like, you're gonna send a typhoon into a room full of snakes. Now a dragon attacks you. Ha 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 ha!
How dare you make the snakes wet?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Did we end up killing the snakes? I don't remember now.
Some of
No,
them.
no. That's the thing with James. Like he will waste your time until like he'll even. You ever notice like you'll get so wasted, dealing with the puzzles and finally getting in a fight, and there's chests right in front of you, and he's like, well, I guess it's time to wrap up the session. What's in those chests? Well, you don't have time. Sorry, it's all gone. And when you go back to look, some elves took it.
Yeah,
Boy,
exactly.
you guys really missed out on some great treasure there. All right.
Yeah. Well, so what was the outcome of today? Today was ultimately we got a corpse. Was that the outcome of today?
The outcome of today was we got a dragon corpse
And some potions.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. That's right.
And the elves took a sword that was blessed to Horus.
Oh, okay.
yeah. I did get 100 and some odd hit points.
You're welcome.
And
Yeah.
15 experience.
Yeah, 15 experience. I cast way more lightning bolts than I should have been able to, but I was like, fuck it, let's get this done.
Oh my god.
Excuse my language.
I
So
think
here's my idea for a campaign I'd like to run,
hit it.
and I might do it. I might do it if you guys like it. Here's what it is. So your characters come down off this high desert plateau, and you see this sort of bowl of the wasteland, stretching out into infinity and everything like that. And in the middle of it is this giant dark spire. It's a dark tower. And as you get close to it, you see that around the tower are 8 small cities. And you go into the first one and you find out that everybody in this ring of cities and everybody in the city that you're at is trying to get to the tower. The entire economy of this place is trying to get to the tower. And you would think, well, why don't I just walk across what looks to be about 10 miles of desert wasteland, because this is how high this tower is, to get to that tower? And the answer is that if you go above ground, if you walk just straight across the flat of the earth from the city to the tower, you die. Like there's just terrible things happen to you. Like grave trolls just pop out of the ground and drag you down underneath. Like you get attacked by ravenous crows. Like you cannot walk across from the city to the tower. And so each of these cities is an anchor point around this tower. And from each city is one sort of like canyon but it's not like a canyon. It's more like if the pharaohs who carved tombs had built a canyon, and you have to thread that canyon to get to the entrance to the tower, to climb the tower. And that's the campaign. And each city has a different name. And the first city you arrive at is Hope. And the problem with Hope is there is no hope. And so like that's each city has a different theme, but like that's like a taste. So that's like an idea I've been playing
Let's
Have you
do
been
it.
reading Nietzsche again?
with. Never.
I mean, I tend to, when I go those places, I tend to stick with the Stoics, but I mean, I get it.
Right on. I think I think we're going to be mixing some stuff up in the coming year. So like we're working with Mike Lafferty on the Banff podcast. He's going to be running some stuff for us. Nick popped out. Then we
I
got
made fun of Nietzsche. I'm sorry. It's my
yeah,
fault.
well, yeah. We got the premise for some of the games that we're going to be pursuing. So yeah, there's going to be some fun stuff lining up for this year as far as what we can do on the stream and what we can do with the stream. You know.
Well, you're looking like you're nearly in bed already. Yeah,
Me?
your eyes are all glassy and stuff. Yeah, at least
No,
in the video.
no, they're not. It's
Okay.
oh, there's Nick. Um,
Mhm.
I'm not ready.
I'm not ready.
Oh, got some weird feedback. Oh, there we go.
I'm back.
and you're back in YOLO. But yeah, there's going to be some cool stuff going on this year. Get some more coffee walt stat. Captain Kilgosha. No, I had my requisite 3 hours of sleep today. I'm good.
Ah, okay. All right.
You
Well,
know.
I had my 2 hour nap, so I'm good too.
Oh, that must have been nice. That must have been nice. Yeah, I think it just might be the shadows what I got
Okay.
going on because what do you call it? I don't have my light shining
Oh.
on my face because it's just like a wall with a giant desk and a couple of monitors right here. So it's like it's not great for light unless I turn the light on, but I don't want to turn the light on because it might disturb somebody. So I got the let's see, I got the ultimate alarm system on the charging station back there.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so he's waiting to come off the charging station so he could climb something and try to eat it.
I would know nothing about that now.
Captain
Yeah.
Klugosha said, "Stop sleeping like a ranger. You aren't 20 anymore." Ain't that the truth? Um, but yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that's probably going to happen with the stream this year. Other games, some cool bits. We have some what was that old column, Dear Judy or something like that. What was that old paper column?
Dear Abby.
Dear Abby. Yeah, we're gonna do that for
Yeah.
D&D. Send in your questions and we'll plug them into Andrew because he doesn't need the 14 minutes of sleep per day that he gets.
Yeah, that guy responds or sends me emails I'm up at all hours and really bizarre hours. Evidently, Andrew is too, because I've gotten some emails from him at just really random times. I'm just like, oh, okay. Yeah.
He also he has this thing he assumes you've had a conversation, or like when he talks about his life, he just assumes you know this thing, and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I've only seen one other person do that, which is Jason, when him and his wife have a child, and we've got book deadlines. He would literally say to me, remember when I was telling you that thing about this? I'm like, no, Jason, that was just a conversation you were having with you.
Hell yeah. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you have 19 kids.
And counting.
Yeah.
Well, you need some ghostwriters. So yeah.
No, that's his shipping department.
Yeah.
So before we close the curtain on things, put away the swords, hang up all the weapons back on the wall, keep JR from throwing feces at everybody. What do you guys want to push out to the stream for next week?
Well, we've got Andrew's game that we're going to be doing, which is the Verda's Tower of Ascension. So that'll be the first time with getting to see Andrew DM, and I can only assume that's going to be a very delightful experience.
Yeah.
I'm a little daunted by he's giving us a vocabulary.
Yeah, that's a little weird. I think that has to do with his game world, though. The whole like humans can't be called humans, that kind of deal. Everybody's got like a certain type.
I'm not doing that. You got to chant spell shit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, monks don't have much in spells, so yeah, I'm good.
Is there more? Is there a more junior enlisted E4 phrase than not doing the shit?
E4 Mafia going. It's like, if you want me to snap my fingers and rhyme, no, that ain't happening.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that shit.
Jazz hands, man. Hands.
That was me when I cared back at PV2.
Back when it was new and shiny and there was hope. But as we learned from Nick's campaign idea, there is no hope.
There is no hope.
Are you going to run that? Are you going to run it?
Does it sound interesting?
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I run something, I'll do that. But if we wanted to create a living, breathing world, why the hell couldn't there be, a thief mob war in one of those cities?
Hell yeah.
That's controlling that sort of canyon to the tower. And then the interesting thing is what's in the tower, what's at the top of the tower, which is like my riff on one of my favorite all-time series, which is the Dark Tower, the Gunslinger, which is really what my book series Weird is all about, which starts with the Red King, which is free on Amazon. You can just download it and have it now, but that's really my version of the Dark Tower.
You should have told me you were going to do that, because I would have, what do you call it? I would have loaded
Dark
it up.
Tower, never heard of her.
Yeah, I would have loaded up your graphics and the thing so I could show everybody.
I can't do
this is, that old thing, it's always for free. It's been free since the day that I wrote it, in 2015. I don't think I've ever charged money for it. But it's but there's 3 other books in my series.
Yeah.
I think I got to go through and kind of rewrite it before I write the next book. I got to get a few things right that I got wrong.
So I was going to say
a selling point.
Yeah. There. You got my money. I'll buy it for free.
You were going to say what?
I was going to say, if we're going to do something, I kind of like the idea that it's all happening in the same world. Even if it's different modules, it's the same kingdom, realm, whatever. So whatever, if we pivot, I think it should be something that has room to grow like that.
Now the question would be: if we do those kind of modules, are they going to be bite-sized, self-contained stories for a 3-hour session, or would it span multiple sessions? Is I guess the question.
I think like what are you talking about? Like JR had talked about maybe running the original modules, and we were just talking about like, hey, how would we build a campaign world? I think we would do it in the same way that we're doing it. So one of the interesting things that I liked about sort of the Dark Tower concept is like all of those canyons are weird and they lead to weird places. So like you could just use that, like you could use that tower and 8 city thing as kind of an anchor point.
Yeah.
And anytime someone said like JR came in and said, like I want to run, Caverns of Thracia. Well, great. Like as you go down this canyon, you find a tomb door and you go in and voila, you're in Caverns of Thracia.
Well, it's like that infamous
I
hallway
don't know.
full of doors where you open the door, it's a new campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always something different.
If you want really weird, though,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
After that Walt knows some people who made. Oh my God, that's a
JR,
weird
don't
setting.
say it. Don't say it. Which one?
The After. It's
I
a
thought
it's
you
a
were going to say
system
something
Walt's.
appropriate.
No, it's
But
a
you sounded all
post-apocalyptic.
grit. You sounded all.
Go ahead,
Oh
Dick.
yeah, the After.
Go ahead, Dick.
Oh, JR sounded all grim. He's like, if you want something really weird, I'm talking.
No, it's called The After. It's like
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you now. Sprint commercial approves. But yeah, that's
Okay. No,
when
you
you
just
talk about
sounded all
weird.
like, if you want something really weird. Okay.
Let me tell you about Snorkel.
Well, folks, yeah, we're gonna hang things up now because we're talking all over each other. It's that time of night, and we want to thank everybody for coming out. We actually had a couple people here tonight. Uh, Peter Mont, Captain Kilgosha, Shadow the Illustrator jumped in for a little bit. Esoteric. We had let's see, I think Jr. typed in there once or twice. So we had a nice crew in here tonight. Kalo not Kale. That's weird. But yeah, we want to thank everybody for coming out, and the